Guess what, ladies and gentlemen? Dan Hurley is staying with the UConn Huskies. You're Locked On UConn.
You are Locked On UConn, your daily podcast on the UConn Huskies, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks for making Locked On UConn your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube as part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day. Little housekeeping. Love all the YouTube support, and I know we're going live, and it's amazing. I'd love for all of my subscribers downloading the audio version wherever you get your podcasts. It's equally as important for helping the channel and the Locked On audience grow. So if you can do me two quick favors. First, click that little subscribe button at the bottom of your screen. Then go ahead over to Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Hit that follow button. This way you'll never miss a moment like this one on Locked On UConn. I can't tell you how much your support means to me. It's everything. If you're tuning in from your car, be a little difficult maybe on in a live version, but drop us a 5-star review. Good reviews trigger referrals for similar shows where we can get some new audience members who are interested in more UConn content. And a special shout out to my everydayers. Today's episode is brought to you by LinkedIn. These days, every new potential hire can feel like a high-stakes wager for your small business. That's why LinkedIn Jobs helps find the right people for your team faster and for free. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. Terms and conditions apply. Decision day has come and gone. It may have felt like a forever situation, but Dan Hurley is staying in stores. I have to say that I have to give Store Central a quick nod. I think most of the people that apply, if you haven't applied or subscribed to Store Central, it helps UConn NIL. So if you're listening to this for the first time and you're a UConn fan, make sure you get your NIL subscription or your Store Central subscription to help UConn NIL. Started to see some good things happen, and then boom, got the Woj bomb of Dan Hurley turning down a 6-year, $70 million contract for the head coaching position of the Los Angeles Lakers. I can't say that I'm surprised. I'm surprised it took this long, if I'm being honest. But I do understand the ramifications of it, getting all your ducks in a row. And honestly, if you're truly an open-minded person, I love that Dan Hurley did his due diligence, said, hey, you made a compelling case, but no thank you, we're staying with UConn. So for me, what does this mean, right? What this means is that UConn is now in position to go into this season even more energized, even more pumped and ready to go for a third straight national title since UCLA went 3 in a row. I think it was 6 in a row from 67 to 73, if I'm correct. But this was inevitable in my opinion. I did a show on Friday, and my title was Dan Says No. And a lot of people were like, well, that's not true yet. He hasn't officially said no. And I looked at it from this perspective, East Coast versus West Coast. Why the East Coast and the grittiness of Dan Hurley? To me, it wouldn't work with such an odd pairing. Can you imagine Andrea Hurley and her family, famously called Providence fans a bad word, I won't say it on a live show, worrying about LA traffic, not seeing her family? People talk about happy life, happy wife. I saw Seth Davis post that a while back, and that doesn't mean you do anything that she wants. It means that you compromise and you marry someone that, as you grow, grows with you. And if Dan Hurley was going to convince his wife that they're going to move to Los Angeles, away from their family in New Jersey, I just found that to be a very difficult sell for him. And I honestly don't think, even if you take the wife factor out of it and you put it to the side, I can't sit there and say, you're going to go coach an aging LeBron James, who hasn't even signed yet back with the Lakers. He could be testing free agency. You're going to get an aging Anthony Davis, who has only played 62 games total in a season more than one time. I think it was last year for the Lakers. You never really know what type of effort you're going to get from NBA players. There's new CBA restrictions. I did a thread today talking about how the constraints of the new CBA make it harder to get that third superstar. And then you talk about the way this was being presented. And I love Woj. I think he does an incredible job. Obviously broke the story before the 2:00 press conference or meeting. And the way he was describing it just didn't feel like a real opportunity. And I don't mean that in the respect of he wasn't going to go see it, he wasn't going to go be presented. The numbers that were being thrown around, 6 years, $120 million. He's going to be making, generational money. 6 years, 70 million. Let's do some quick math on that. I know we're doing a live show, but 70 million divided into 6, just under 12 million. So 11.6. So you're telling me he's going to uproot his family for less than $12 million. Pardon me. And then you factor in the highest tax rate possible for California. So he's getting 40% of that. So now he's back down to what he makes at UConn. And I know that, Connecticut isn't exactly a tax haven, but I would imagine he's going to get a raise here, and they're going to be working on a contract extension for him as well. I just could not see this as a bigger win for UConn and what that'll mean for them for one, think about the new recruits that came in. We all knew that, for me personally, I knew he wasn't going to leave Alex Caravan out to dry. And I always think about his conversation that he had with Alex when it was, if you're 50-50 on a decision, stay home, right? Stay with the initial thought versus moving on. And as soon as it started talking about 50-50, you don't tell your players one thing and then do something else. Factor in the family aspect. Obviously, Andrea, I did notice that, did note that his children are out of the house. So that would have made it a lot easier. But as I said last night on a live show, even myself at 43, not being at the top of my profession, if someone said, I need you to uproot your life for, people are calling it generational money. It's not by the standards of which Dan Hurley can go back and get other jobs. He wasn't being paid as the highest paid player. He wouldn't have been the highest paid coach in LA. I think it would have been pretty comparable with Ty Lue. So to me, I couldn't see it happening. So now that we have confirmation, I think the college basketball world breathes a sigh of relief, at least for another year, 2 years, 3 years potentially. We'll see what that extension lies. And then literally the watch will be on for East Coast teams, NBA teams that have interesting rosters. I know one that comes to mind, and I'm sure fans in the Northeast would be very excited about bringing Dan Hurley to the New York Knicks. So to me, that is where the countdown will begin, to start with Dan Hurley to the Knicks conversation. But there's a title to defend. And I know Dan is a guy that likes to work in challenges. He is a guy that is wired to, look for that next challenge. And we're going to talk about what's next coming up after this. When you're hiring for your small business, you want to find quality professionals that are right for the role. That's why you use LinkedIn Jobs. I remember searching for my latest team member when I had my own business. It was such a breeze with LinkedIn Jobs. They have tools to help you find the right professionals faster and for free. LinkedIn isn't just a job board. It connects you with professionals you can't find anywhere else, even those who aren't actively searching for a new job, but might be open to a perfect role. Did you know that over 70% of LinkedIn users don't visit other leading job sites? If you're not looking on LinkedIn, you're looking in the wrong place. Plus, 86% of small businesses get a qualified candidate within 24 hours on LinkedIn. I experienced it firsthand in my own business. Hire professionals like a professional on LinkedIn. Check out LinkedIn Jobs today. All right, we're back on Locked On UConn live edition. As a fan, I am super excited. What's next? We've had this drumbeat of UConn being the preseason number one. If there aren't 20 articles about why this UConn team should be number one next week based off of the energy that this team is going to receive. Hey, by the way, I turned down coaching LeBron James, coaching Anthony Davis, coaching the Los Angeles Lakers to come back and coach you to a championship, for the younger guys to get you to the next level, for the transfers, for you to follow in the footsteps of Cam Spencer, for you to follow in the footsteps of Tristan Newton. What is that going to be like? You think that these kids would run through a brick wall for Dan Hurley now or before? What about now? The two targets that we've talked about in our shows, AJ and Malik, the number 1 and 7 players in the 2025 class. What are they thinking right now? One of my suitors had a coach who could have left to go coach, in their eyes, a lot of their eyes, the greatest player of all time. And he said no. He said, no, my job is not done at UConn. And he's still here. That's what's the most incredible thing about all of this, is that he is going to be able to now spin this into this season. And just when you thought all of the Dan Hurley haters, he couldn't be more insufferable, he's going to be even more insufferable as time goes. UConn fans, we love it. We love that he calls us obnoxious as shh, and that we are active on social media. I guarantee at some point he's going to talk about the amount of times he was tagged, the amount of times he received a message. I know I threw a couple of funny ones on there. They're not a sponsor, but Porosos, the vodka company that Tom Segura and Bert Kreischer put together. I said, if no matter what, I'm going to need some more Porosos for drinking tonight, because it was stressful. I as silly as that sound, for someone that's trying to be stoic and you control what you can control. I threw myself into some work and really focused on getting some stuff done today. And to have this relief over the state, I feel like is going to really make us even more annoying going further. So if you hate UConn fans, I have a message for you. You should probably get off social media for a long period of time, because as long as Dan Hurley is in town, this team is going to be competing for championships, and we're going to bother you about ridiculous things you say about UConn, bother you about the things that you say that are not so nice about UConn players, disparaging remarks about, how he turned down an opportunity to coach the Lakers. I think it's a commentary on both, about how great the UConn job is, number one. And number two, this idea that the Lakers job was this destination situation. It just is not. It never was. I wrote this to a friend of mine today. He runs a fantastic podcast. I'm giving people shout outs all over the place. If you haven't heard of Big East Barroom, go check them out. It's run by two UConn fans. I said, and I put this in a thread. Let's get this over here. That I look at it like this. For Dan, he had to have looked at it like, if you win a college title, you're minted as a god, right? And then if you look at just the Lakers' recent history, forget about the past. Let's look at the recent history. Frank Vogel won a title in 2020. He's fired 2 years later after winning a championship with the Lakers in the bubble. Arguably a very difficult situation. You're there 100 days. You can't go anywhere. And he got those guys to lock in for a title. Some people don't count it, whatever. It's a championship. It's a ring. You won a ring and you're out in 2 years. Now imagine if Dan Hurley does take the Lakers job and he wins a title in year 2, which was unlikely. Let's just pretend. And then he gets fired in year 4. There's no possible reason if he won just one ring at UConn, they would fire him in year 4, barring some crazy scandal. So the pitch was being doled out by Woj that they were going to give him this autonomy and that he was going to be kind of a pseudo, I heard the phrase AAU coach style product development coach for, Bronny James eventually, because they have the 55th pick in the draft and the 17th pick in the first round. Who gives a rip? Who are you getting with the 17th pick? I mean, this draft has been hysterically laughed at. A lot of UConn fans love the players on their team that are going in the draft, and we feel like they're going to be some underrated folks that get drafted. But as a collective, this draft is terrible. So now you're trying to pitch a guy that he's full autonomy, even though LeBron James is looming, even though there's a potential where you're going to have to draft his son. And our young core is Max Christie, Rui Hachimura, and Austin Reeves, all very good NBA players, all not getting you where you need to go at the NBA level. So, and then there's the fact that the owners, they didn't blow you away with an offer. 6 years is $70 million. I'll take it right now, but it's definitely not blowing Dan Hurley's socks off. The reports where he was offered 8 years for $100 million at Kentucky, which was more. So they're not flush with cash. There's CBA restraints, and they're preaching patience. But if you think LA fans are going to be patient, then I have some real estate, some beachfront property real estate in Kansas I'd like to sell you. So long-term plan, he makes more money at UConn staying. He also will likely go to the NBA 3, 4, 5 years from down the road, and he will be much happier, in particular if it's on the East Coast. That's what's next. And we're going to talk about the ultimate flex in recruiting coming up after this. Summertime means baseball, the NBA Finals, and Dan Hurley coming back to UConn, and more, and you can bet on it all on FanDuel. Right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $200 you can use to bet everything from the Finals MVP to who's going to hit one out of the park. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and add to a big win to your summer bucket list. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. I'm going to talk about the ultimate flex, and then I'm going to try to hit some comments here because we are on live on our Locked On UConn channel, as well as the Locked On Sports Today channel. So we may get some angry Lakers fans. I have no idea. But what a relief. And just thinking about where this could have gone, and now thinking about what this does for UConn in the future. Number one, I expect an announcement of a extension where he's going to be, if not the highest paid coach in college basketball, close to it. We all know Bill Self makes just under $10 million. So even if it's a shorter years-wise, I do expect the amount to eclipse $10 million a year. Could be wrong, but that's my speculation. But we kind of talked about this. What a summer for UConn. You win, you go from winning a second straight national title to then the possibility of losing your coach to Kentucky, which I never thought was a serious one. But at the same time, he was still offered. He didn't entertain it, but they were relentless, same way the Lakers were. But he also talked about how he was not going to coach another college. And then you go to LA to get a pitch pitched to you by Jeannie Buss and Rob Pelinka. You don't commit to them. You come home, you go to the Billy Joel concert, and you come back and you say, thanks, but no thanks. That story is going to be lauded and made legend by UConn fans forever. And anybody that's recruiting on his behalf, Kimani Young, Luke Murray, Tom Moore, the staff, they're going to tell that story over and over and over again so that people know that Dan Hurley is serious about making UConn the premier basketball program in college basketball history, not just of the past 25, 30 years, like he's talked about, how we've run college basketball. But you go three-peat, you start getting into that 7, 8, 9, 10 titles. Now we're up there, and no one can ever tell you that, well, Kentucky's got 8, UCLA has 11. We win 3 straight, we're on par with – we already are, but we're at that level, if not exceeding it. And to continue to add on to it. You think he's coming back to just partake? But he's coming back to take over college basketball. And that's the ultimate flex. I turned down Kentucky, and I turned down the Lakers for you, and I want you to come back. And I want you to tell all of your friends that we think are legit here in the transfer portal, in the recruiting trail, that UConn is the best place to play college basketball. Let's see if we get any comments here. All right. Yeah, so Lakers tried too hard for an East Coast guy. Congratulate UConn, go for a three-peat. So listen, that's a good one. We'll put you on here. I love looking at these comments, Lakers fan here. I knew that this was sadly going to be the outcome. Family, connections, emotional well-being are priorities. I respect this decision. Dave, you are one of the only sound, or I shouldn't say only, but one of the few Laker fans that have taken this in stride. But you also are pretty smart, because most people that, saw this opportunity for Dan Hurley as exactly what it was. It was to kind of test the waters. I definitely think he was surprised by all this, that he didn't think that this was going to happen this quickly. And he was able to kind of, I want to say fulfill a dream, but, get flown out private, go and schmooze with the glitz and glamour, realize that it's not for him. And, I think it's definitely a coup for us to do that. This is an interesting one from Joe Fox. Let me take down this FanDuel banner really quick. Where you at, FanDuel? By the way, thank you for being a sponsor, FanDuel. The comments. This was a good one from Joe. Joe Brown. Crazy like a damn fox. What a recruiting move. He got national news and showed the world he's the best coach in college basketball. Joe, I think that that's a great point. And if you ever want to come on the show and talk college basketball, feel free, because to me, it is all a part of kind of the stuff that we've talked about on the show, which is it doesn't add up. So what does it mean? It's kind of like, we all have our, shows that we like and we love, and they're written in a way so that they take you down, a path, right? And every once in a while, there's a surprise ending. I did not see this as a surprise ending where Dan Hurley was going to go to the Lakers. I always thought that he was staying at UConn. Even when the news broke, my heart sunk because it said breaking news, and they're preparing to, remember all the language. You have to go back and look at some of the things that were said early. The Lakers are preparing to target it and send a massive contract. By the way, we talked about this already, but how massive was that contract? Not really. Did it even get to $100 million? I mean, you're trying to lure the best college coach in college basketball, a guy that you see as a program builder. That just goes to show that they weren't truly serious about getting him, in my opinion. That they're now going to turn their attention to JJ Redick, see if they can get him to come down on his price and get LeBron and do what the Lakers do, which is, be mediocre until they finally are going to potentially blow the whole thing up again, because it's not going to be as easy as it used to be for the Lakers. And that's a good thing for the Huskies. What a great day to be a Connecticut resident. Alberto, I couldn't agree with you more, my friend. Let's see. What else we got here? Yeah, I think this is loyalty, but I also think it's also the job's just not done, in his opinion. I think we'll all know when Dan Hurley has had enough of UConn. And I think his ability to kind of talk about what is coming up next, as I give the thumbs up, apparently, I don't think it's less about loyalty and more about it's just bad timing by the Lakers, to be completely fair. If you hear any barking in the background, I think it's my dog getting excited over the UConn win here today. Can you recap the reporting? I mean, listen, Jesus, for me, it's pretty simple. It started with Woj talking about they were targeting him. It continued down that path to he's considering it because it's the Lakers and it's a generational brand, all of that. And I get all that, and that's totally fair. But I guarantee you, as time went on, because it really kind of went from he's 50-50 on it because he's an East Coast guy. It's the West Coast. He'll go talk to them on a Friday. He came back, took time. If anybody has listened to any reporting or any talks with Dan Hurley, he has become kind of a stoic type of person. You can control what you can control. He doesn't take away from any of his fiery ability on the court to coach. But he's also the type of person that kind of like, he's very into his faith. He's got a room where he prays and meditates, does his mushroom tea, doesn't do the coffee anymore that helps with caffeine intake, and it kind of has calmed him down. And so I think that to me is kind of where he went, talk to his wife, talk to his family, I mean, listen, if there's a better guy to talk to in this situation, you talk to his dad. I mean, Bob Sr. won 26 state championships, I think 4 national championships at the high school level. To talk to his dad and say, listen, we got this opportunity to be the coach of the Lakers, and I'm thinking about turning it down. Do you think it's the right choice? And I'm sure Bob said yes, because we're here. If Bob said, you know what, you're never going to get this opportunity again, you should go, I think he would have went. But I think, like most smart individuals, being intellectually honest in your reporting, the idea that this opportunity isn't going to come back around is a joke. It 100% will. Because is UConn all of a sudden going to fall apart? I don't think so. UConn is going to be competing for another national championship. They're also going to be competing for a top recruiting class the following year and a top transfer portal class the following year. And this is going to feel like deja vu for a lot of college basketball fans, because UConn is going to be right there, making it look probably a little too easy for folks. This is also a great point. Anytime ESPN can get some attention for the NBA that isn't about the actual product, because I like the NBA. I'm probably in the minority as a college basketball fan. But last night's game was atrocious. It was a brutal game. In 1990, that game would have been pretty awesome. But in 2024, where we're supposed to see freedom of movement, we're supposed to see less guys getting, killed at the basket. For me, that was a brutal game to watch. So Dan helped them out. So I'm going to end the show because I need to take a breath about this, and I'm going to record another show tonight that'll come out for tomorrow. But I'm so excited for UConn fans. I'm so excited for the state of Connecticut. I'm so excited for college basketball as a whole, because we're not losing essentially the voice of college basketball right now is Dan Hurley. So it would have been a tough blow to the entire sport to lose him. So just to give you a heads up, because we're on it, Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. It's also available on the Amazon Fire TV and the free Fire TV channels app. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Find Locked On Sports Today now available on the free Fire TV channels app. This has been another episode of Locked On UConn, albeit live, and I'm so excited. I'm your host, Mark Zanetto, asking you to stay locked in, stay connected, make sure your toughness meter is always rising. Dan Hurley, thank you. UConn Nation, thank you. And as always, go Huskies.